Yeah.
Oh, hang on, got Neil.
Straight line. I was getting it. You've got one more.
Yeah, might as well grab it, Neil. Cheers, mate. We'll probably have some more coming in a minute. We always do. Right, let's start it, shall we? You're rolling?
Starting.
Okay, brilliant. Right, welcome to the Coventry Music Museum. If anybody's got phones and they'd like to put them to stun now, that would be cool. Because we are going to video this, as we normally do. Right, so welcome to this very special 3-minute hero sounding off with the main man. Get ready, Bob Eaton! Yay! Before we start on the questions, and I think I'm going to speak for everybody, I've already told you this, absolutely wonderful. Has anybody not got a ticket for 3-Minute Heroes or hasn't seen it yet? Yeah, you've got to go and see it. It is absolutely wonderful, really. Ticks all the boxes. You'd agree, Joseph, wouldn't you? Yeah. Joseph is one of the actors, thanks for coming along. Absolutely wonderful. Anyway, I normally start with the question is, how did you get into music in the first place? Obviously slightly different for you, Bob. So what made you want to create 3-Minute Heroes?
Well, yeah, I've always been, I'm of that generation, I'm from the kind of the Beatles generation, and, when I was a kid, we had a band, and I played rhythm guitar and sang in this band in Derbyshire, around the thing. And then, in a way, I had a choice, I was either going to follow that or I was going to go into theatre. And I went for the theatre option because my dad wanted me to. It was, I always had this sort of regret really that I hadn't, this thing, the path you didn't take, At the same time I knew I'd probably be dead, if I'd gone down that road. But there was always something that was very important to me, and so right from the very beginning, my work in theatre as a director and writer in the 70s, I was all the time trying to get popular music into it, particularly rock and roll and that sort of thing into the work that I was doing. Not just because I liked it, but because also what rock and roll did, well, rock and roll, but then particularly the sort of the 60s, the Beatles generation, what that did was it was a fantastic sort of democratizer. It was a fantastic kind of leveller. There was people from all kinds of backgrounds into the same music. It split off after a while. It split up after a while. People were into heavy metal, or they were into this, or they were into that. But there was a time when it was like everybody, certainly all young people, were kind of into the same music, and that was the time when suddenly the class barriers seemed to be breaking down. As it turned out, they weren't doing so quite as much as we thought they were. But it had, so therefore, music, particularly rock and roll, had this kind of social effect. It was a kind of political effect, really, of kind of pulling people together. And I was from a reasonably comfortable sort of low middle class background, and through playing in this band I was plunged into places where I wouldn't have otherwise been, like miners' pubs in Ilkeston and Ripley in East Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, that sort of area, quite rough places, and of course it was great, it was just fantastic, it was lovely, but I was a sort of quite a proper young chap, grammar school boy, suddenly in these kind of, and I absolutely loved it, and what I always wanted to do was to get all kinds of people into the theatre, working class people as well as the more kind of middle class intelligentsia kind of people, because it just seemed to me to be one of the great places where when you get a mixture of people in a theatre, it's like nothing else. It's just fantastic. You have this great, and the other thing that really kind of appealed to me about the sort of theatre that I was involved in the 70s and the 80s was that the idea of the theatre belonging to the area that it was in, actually reflecting the area that it was in, and it's a fantastic place to tell the stories of the place where the theatre is. And that was the thing that always fascinated me. My very first job was at the Victoria Theatre in Stoke, where the director, who was a brilliant man called Peter Cheeseman, he used to do these things called local theatre documentaries. And quite often it was a tape recorder, and he'd go out and he'd talk to people, and he'd get local stories, and it might be about prisoners who had been captured in the war, it might be about the steelworks that was being shut down, you know, there's all, and historical things as well. And they were brilliant, and his thing was folk music. He used to use folk music in the thing, and I sort of came along with my, you know, with my rock and roll, and was always trying to get that in, and so that's been there right through all the shows, the work that I've done ever since the early 1970s. So, like when I went to, it's a long answer to a short question. When I went to in 1981, I got the job as director of the Everyman Theatre in Liverpool, and I was talking to the outgoing director about the sort of shows I wanted to do. You know, I said, you know, I want to do shows with popular music, that have a local story and so on. You know, and somebody put a record on of John Lennon singing "Woman" because he'd only been shot less than 6 months before. And I thought, oh God, could we do that? You know, I did the sort of thing that Peter did at Stoke, like as a documentary sort of thing, and told the story of John's life through his music, through his songs. So I did, and that was the first show I did at the Everyman in Liverpool, and it was a massive success, and has been going, you know, one way and another ever since there. It was in London, it's in New York, and one thing or another. So when I came to the Belgrade in 96, 95, 96, one of the first things I thought was, what are the stories, and where is the popular music? And you know, you don't have to look far, do you?
Yeah.
You know, what's the, you know, as Liza's character in the show says, you know, the biggest thing to come out of Coventry since, the biggest thing to hit Coventry since the Luftwaffe, you know, was two-tone. In fact, I only knew about the Blitz, Lady Godiva and two-tone. That was all I knew about Coventry. So right from the beginning, from '95, I was working on the idea of doing something about two-tone. And it took a while to do, you know, to put together. But that's where it came from.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a nice in-depth answer. Then we like that. So, how hard, or indeed easy, was the process? And we're talking about the original production here, now, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it was not as easy as it would be now, because there's about half a dozen books by people from the bands, you know, one way or another, which are great, you know, like Neville's book, you know, Horace's book, Pauline's book, and several more really good books about two-tone, you know, which would have saved me a lot of work, you know, to find stuff out. So I just had to, you know. But of course the music was there, but even that was not so available then. I mean, in 96, 97, 98, it was quite hard to actually find, you know, because there wasn't the whole thing about, you know, you couldn't go online and sort of say, you know, I want about it, and you could get it from Amazon in 24 hours. It was had to go around, you know, what was that? Not Virgin. What's that cheap record shop in London? Well, there was a chain. It wasn't Virgin. It was the one.
Rough Trade?
No, it wasn't. No, there was one. It was a kind of general bog standard one, but they did used to do quite a lot of, you know, volume bin sort of stuff, and so it was going around there. It was looking through the old stuff, you know, and obviously you could get the compilations and so on, but not that many. It wasn't that easy. So but you know, it wasn't impossible by any means. So it was pulling together the actual information and stories was you know, it was a little bit hard, but once you got it going, it's just such a great story, you know. It's just such a great story with all kind of, you know, social and political aspects to it, you know, which make for interesting storytelling, interesting drama.